All right, so what exactly is happening with money laundering here in South Africa? You ordinarily wouldn't think it's that big an issue. It's always big European countries, isn't it? Small islands hiding their money away. But it seems the International Financial Action Task Force is raising red flags. Now, one of those, the Pala Farm saga, also shining a bit of a spotlight on this. So let's get the thoughts then of the CEO of the South African Institute of Tax Professionals, Prof. Keith Engel. Always good to have you on eNCA. Prof, really appreciate your time. Is it going too far for me to suggest that South Africa is a money laundering haven? Good morning.
There has been some suggestion for quite some time that we do a fair amount of money laundering. I don't know if we're a top haven, but that there's a good chunk of money that's going through here that's not being controlled. And you mentioned the FIC. We're under criticism by the Financial Task Force that the FIC is, while the law is there, the implementation is not there. So there is some concern, and that's not around, this issue about the farm, but it's more issues around drug money and other forms of corruption. So there is an element of this. I don't know how big, but it's not small.
Let's just go back one step, Prof, if you don't mind just giving me a bit of a lesson in money laundering 101. What exactly is that? How is that different to, for example, tax evasion? What exactly is money laundering?
Well, money laundering usually is coming out of corruption. So typically the drug money is the big thing. If you'll see in the United States, it's about drugs. How do they cash? They buy everything in cash. Now the question is, how do you take that cash and make it legitimate in the economy? So typically, I don't know if you remember the movie Scarface. If you remember, they were bringing in bags of cash, and then the bank was going ahead and converting that into the banking account and getting it into the normalized system. So money laundering is getting it from the cash system into the electronic system and making it look like every other form of money.
It's like taking dirty money, isn't it, and making it clean by getting it into
Absolutely.
the economy. And that's why the word laundering comes in there, I'm sure, as well.
That's right.
And just how does this affect our economy? How does this affect our fiscus? Is this something that the ordinary South African should keep an eye out for? It could have an effect on the way we live day to day?
Well, it depends. To be honest with you, if money laundering is happening in the economy, a lot of times it actually helps the economy. If you look at London, there's a fair amount of money laundering that went on there, and that shot up real estate prices and other things. Typically, the problem is it's the corruption that's getting in the system. From a SARS point of view, the problem with money laundering is that's tax not collected. So that's usually the issue that's raised in South Africa.
And the tax base that is actually paying their tax bills at the moment is incredibly low. I was hearing numbers as low as 18%. Prof, is that correct? Only 18% of us in South Africa are paying tax. That can't be right, surely.
Well, I don't know if that's about money laundering. The biggest problem here is that we have a very small tax base. So our legitimate tax base, the number of people working to the number of people unemployed is very small. So that's what that number is all about. But there is a fair amount, and I think SARS actually picked it up recently, that there are about 72 taxpayers that owe billions that they haven't collected from. Now, I'm not sure if that's part of the money laundering, but that's certainly part of the element that's a major problem. The other areas where you see money laundering is not just about corruption, drug money or illegal money coming in, but you'll also see it coming around tax evasion. If you earn your money in tax, so, very simple, you pay your plumber, you pay your electrician. If you pay them in cash, that's often not reported. And that's where the issue from a tax side comes in. And I think that's what the concern is around the president. Why do you have all this cash? You got paid in cash. Now, did you tell the revenue service? Now, we don't know if he did or not, but typically when you see lots of cash around, it just doesn't go to the revenue service.
Questions get asked about money sitting around not doing very much, doesn't it, Prof? Just very quickly then, before I say goodbye, where do we begin to try and get on top of this? Obviously, SARS are going to do what they can, but it can't just be SARS trying to fix money laundering by themselves. Who's the next person in charge down the ladder?
I would say that's the FIC. The Reserve Bank keeps an eye on a fair amount, but the Reserve Bank is more of a monitoring function from the distance through the authorized dealer banks. The biggest issue that was flagged by the Financial Task Force is increasing enforcement on the FIC when big money goes into the banking system. I think that's where we really have to work at it.
And I appreciate your time, as always. Professor Keith Engel, CEO of the South African Institute of Tax Professionals, joining us, talking about money laundering. It's our big focus here on eNCA throughout this morning.